What's up everybody? Did you actually know that there's 4 main varieties of ramen? Today I'm going to talk about the Miso-style ramen, aka the fermented soybean paste-based ramen. I went on a buck-wild hunt through Tokyo, Japan, looking for the best miso ramen I could find. So grab a treat and take a seat because the miso ramen tour is about to begin. So the first stop on this life-changing miso ramen tour is a restaurant called Oshima. It's located in Edogawa in East Tokyo, and it's supposed to be famous for Sapporo-style miso ramen. So I waltzed on into the place and figured I'd order up their basic no-frills miso ramen. I went up to that ticket counter, got my bill out, started putting it in, and what the hell is that? How's a man supposed to order some ramen when the damn bill won't even go into the machine? Okay, I think it finally decided to cooperate, so I clicked that button and got myself my ramen ticket. Then I gave my ticket to the ramen maestro, sat myself down, and not long afterward, the ramen was ready. Now, as I mentioned before, this was supposed to be a Sapporo-style miso ramen. I think that means that broth is supposed to be rich, thick, and hearty. After all, that's exactly the kind of broth you want when you're trying to survive those gonad-shrinking Sapporo winters. So I got myself a spoon of that broth on deck and took myself a sip. Now I thought I was mentally prepared for that broth, but apparently I was sorely mistaken. Not only was that broth hot as fuck, but it was also garlicky to the max. Mind you, that broth did taste pretty good, and it had some nice miso flavors going down. It was just a tad more intense than I expected. Next up, I moved on to those noodles and started chomping down on those things. And man, oh man, those noodles were tasting good with that tangy miso flavor. Only problem was they were hot as hell, much like the broth with which they were coated. Just how hot are we talking here? They were roof-of-your-mouth scalding hot. They were Fukushima reactor hot. I figured I needed a chance for my mouth to cool down, so I decided to get some of these spices on the side here. I got this can of pepper, and I couldn't help but notice that it didn't specify whether this pepper was white pepper or black pepper. So I started shaking it out, and whoa, it's actually black pepper. So I guess pepper is just black by default now. Sounds a little bit racist to me, but hey, what do I know? Anyway, I wanted a little diversity in my life, so I added some red pepper to the mix as well. And as soon as I started biting into those noodles, I felt like that was a worthwhile addition. That pepper kinda cut into that intense garlicky flavor that was going on. You might even go as far as to say as that garlicky flavor was dissipated, baby. So next up, I found myself a huge-ass chunk of meat, took myself a bite of that meat. And wow, just wow, that meat was tasting tender as hell and swell as a bell. It definitely went well with that strong broth they had in there. Nevertheless, as good as this ramen was, I was having a hard time getting over the fact that it was just so damn hot. It seemed like there was a layer of oil on top of that broth that was just holding all the heat in. I mean, look at the steam flying off those noodles. I'm mostly finished with the bowl and it's still that hot? Maybe that works in Sapporo, the supposed birthplace of miso ramen, but around these parts of Tokyo, I feel like I'm sweating my damn balls off with each passing bite. Bottom line is, that bowl of ramen was pretty good, it was just a tad too hot for my liking. And on top of that, if you ask me, the actual flavor of the broth was a bit too intense as well. Nevertheless, decent ramen bowl right there. So the next location on deck is a ramen shop called Hanamichi. It's located in Nakano, Tokyo, and word on the street is it has a mighty nice miso ramen. So I went up to that ticket machine feeling a tad shell-shocked from the last encounter, and I put that bill in and oh, man, it actually went in. This is my kind of machine right here. So after I got my ticket, I gave it to the ramen maestro, and you best believe he brought out that ramen pronto. It seemed to me like that ramen maestro had my best interests at heart. So after taking a closer look at that ramen bowl, I thought it wasn't looking half bad. I was kinda happy because the ramen maestro asked me if I wanted a full stack of sprouts. I'm not too big on sprouts in my ramen, so I told him I wanted a half stack and he gave me the other half on the side, just in case I had a change of heart. That's a pretty nice ramen maestro right there, almost brings a tear to my eye. So first up, I decided I'd best be tasting that broth. So I savagely jammed that spoonful into my mouth, and I gotta say, compared to that previous broth, I was kinda surprised. This broth was kinda soupy, kinda peppery, and most definitely miso-y. But it wasn't too hot, that's for damn sure. I felt like I could sip it to my heart's content. Next up, I grabbed myself a piece of meat, and it was looking a tad dry, so I decided I'd best be getting some broth on that meat. Then I bit into that meat like a hunger-crazed cannibal on crack. And whoa, hold the phone here, baby. I'm sensing a temperature differential over here. That broth was moderately hot, but that meat was lukewarm, almost cold. I guess I must sound like a damn temperature Nazi over here, but hey, what can I say? I want myself a nicely heated bowl of ramen. Is that too much to ask? I mean, don't get me wrong, that meat was a treat. I just want it to be a little bit warm. Can ya blame me? So next up, I moved on to those noodles, and I got to admit they were mighty thick. They were actually pretty damn good. They soaked up that mild, creamy miso broth in buck wild ways. I guess the point I'm trying to get across here is that I actually felt a spiritual connection to those noodles. So next up, I figured I'd try out some menma, grabbed myself a nice thick piece of menma, took myself a bite of that menma, and whoa! Here we go with that temperature difference again. That menma was borderline cold. I must admit, I was feeling a tad stressed out about the whole temperature situation, so I decided to get myself some garlic to take my mind off it. There ain't nothing like some fresh garlic to turn that frown upside down, that's what I always say. So after I thoroughly mixed that garlic in and took myself a taste, I have to admit I actually think that garlic helped out a bit. The broth already did have a sort of mild garlic flavor going on, but this was more of an intermediate garlic flavor, and I must admit I liked it a lot. So overall, this bowl of ramen was pretty good, although perhaps not life-changing. I liked the noodles and I liked the broth, I just hope they can bring their temperature game up a notch for future bowls. So the final stop on this miso ramen tour is a restaurant called Kaede in Okubo, Tokyo. I heard say and I heard tell that this place makes a mean miso ramen, so I decided I best be checking it out. So I walked up to that poster, took a look, then I sprinted on inside that restaurant. I tried to get my bill in there, but surprise, surprise, it shot the bill out. What's with these places anyway? Is it a problem with the machines, or is it a problem with me? I'm starting to second guess my bill insertion skills over here. Maybe I need to find some kind of bill insertion skills 101 self-help book, but hey, I don't know exactly. Bottom line is these damn ticket machines are messing with my vibe over here. Anyway, it's time for some miso ramen. As you can plainly see, that bowl of miso ramen is looking pretty damn good. I am a bit taken aback by that huge stack of sprouts, but on the plus side, that sauce topping ain't looking half bad. It's like a gigantic wad of sauce just shot off onto the top. Seems simple yet elegant to me, baby cakes. So first up, I figured I might as well take a taste of that broth. I took myself a sip and oh my dogs. That broth was tasting nice, that broth was tasting real nice. It was slightly thick, but not too thick. It was moderately miso-y, but not too miso-y. I guess you could say it was a well-balanced broth. Next up, I started making headway into that sprout stack. I could see a shitload of steam flying all over the place here, so I grabbed myself some of those sprouts and some of that sauce, and then I took myself a bite. And wow, just fucking wow, here I went into that bite feeling a tad prejudiced against sprouts, but man oh man did I change. Today is changing day in my life, baby. When I bit into those sprouts, I was expecting some firm crunchiness. Come to find out, apparently I was wrong. Apparently I was dead fucking wrong. Those sprouts were actually pretty well cooked. They were soft and succulent, and I loved them to bits. Next up, I grabbed myself a gigantic wad of noodles and took myself a chomp. And not only were those noodles thick and firm, yet supple, but I could also detect some notes of eggy wig in those noodles. I'm a tad embarrassed to admit it, but I was actually feeling a tad off-nar right about now, aka aroused for no apparent fucking reason. Now overall, I have to say this bowl was pretty good, but I felt like there was something missing. I felt like it needed some meat. And lo and behold, what do we have here? Instead of putting that meat on the top of the ramen bowl, they had it hiding somewhere down in the bottom. So I took myself a bite of that meat, and I gotta say, it was a bit more firm than I expected, but overall it was pretty decent. I mean, it might not have been as soft as I wanted it to be, but it was definitely in the right range temperature-wise, let's just put it that way. Actually, it seemed to me like this bowl of ramen was in Goldilocks mode. It sure as hell wasn't too hot, and it sure as fuck wasn't too cold, sweetie buns. I guess what I'm trying to say in a meandering way is that bowl of ramen soothed my soul and reinvigorated my spirit. So overall, after having these 3 famous miso ramen bowls, I'd have to say that the Kaede was my fave. I'd have to give the second place ranking to the Oshima, and I'd have to give the last place to the Hanamichi. And I must say, when I first came to Japan, I considered miso to be my favorite kind of ramen for the longest time, but after this tour, I think I had to reconsider. I mean, miso is always a safe bet, but it's kinda hard to get to the upper echelons of ramen just eating miso, at least that's what I think.
By the way, I've got even more life-changing videos on Japanese food, so feel free to check those out. I've got a Shio Ramen Showdown video, and I have an Omu Rice Showdown video. So click one of those links within 10 nanoseconds and you'll have good luck for 10 years.